I'm sure there's some things that popped up last night that you're like, man, I should have said this or I should have said that. Did anything? And if so, we'll leave that to the end. But if not, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, so I wrote down yesterday that we had a little struggle on the take action aspect, and so I did have some additional thoughts on that.
Okay, let's leave that till the very end here, and you want to talk about that in regards to the take action part, which I think was implement now, perfect later. Which, I mean, that could be a damn good title for a book, to be honest. But we'll talk about that later.
Sure.
So, where we left off, where I'd like to begin is back into balance. I know that we talked a little bit about that. I didn't know if that was a lesson in itself or if it was something that you even wanted to go into detail about. Because as an entrepreneur in general, I think your life is constantly out of balance. And maybe anybody who's looking to become a real estate agent doesn't realize that you really need to keep, the reins on everything. And you got to say no to people, say yes to people, and make sure that your priorities are right so your life's in balance. Is that something you want to go into?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. So talk about balance. Was your life out of balance for a long time? What happened in the very beginning and where are you at now? And maybe something that really showed you, hey, I need to keep a check on this. Maybe it was a mentor, maybe it was a friend, maybe it's a client that completely screwed up your life and you missed your kid's baseball game, something like that you're like, this is not right for me.
Yeah. So, the first several years of my real estate career, it was just me. I was a single agent. I was, doing all kinds of business. I was listing, I was buying. And I was newly married, and I think I mentioned my husband, he loved to golf. So he was always golfing. I was working. And, real estate was my game. Golf was his game and real estate was my game. And I really enjoyed it. And I felt very fortunate that I was doing work that I enjoyed.
Do you look at real estate as a game?
Yeah, pretty much.
As a game.
Yeah. I don't play video games. I didn't play any sports, he was always trying to get better at golf and I was always trying to get better at real estate. It's a real life game, of figuring out how you can, increase your net and, all kinds of metrics that you can change. And I'm still playing the game today, just with different obstacles and different challenges. But, eventually I got to a place where I was at 45 transactions myself in July, and I hit a complete wall. And
45 in a month? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Oh, okay.
For the year so far, that year. And all by myself. I didn't have any help of any kind. And I hit a wall. And we were actually headed to Buffalo for a friend's wedding over the 4th of July, I think. And I just completely broke down. And I'm like, I can't do this. It's too much. I can't, it's too much. I have to figure out a way to break this out, to leverage it, to do something different. So we decided to extend our stay when we were up in Buffalo, and we went to some friends' parents' house in Cape Cod for the week. So we just kind of jumped onto their vacation because I was done. Like, I couldn't function. And I so happened to have Gary Keller's book Shift in my bag, and I hadn't read it yet at that point. And so we were there, and after a couple of days by the pool, I started to crack open the book Shift, and it started to identify a lot of the things that I had already painfully figured out myself. And so I had found out that I was recreating the wheel, but also in reading that book, I realized that other people had experienced what I had experienced, and there were ways to fix it. So on that trip is when I decided to shift my business to become a listing specialist, to focus on listings, and to hire a buyer's agent to take my buyers. The model generally suggests to hire a transaction coordinator or an admin at that point. But I knew that I wanted my evenings and weekends back, and transaction coordinator or EA was not going to do that for me. I wanted to peel off the buyer side of things. I wanted to get really freaking good at the listing side of things, because that's
real quick. Can you summarize what a buyer's what a buyer's lister or buyer's agent will do? Like, what will that do for you? Basically, you made the connection, and then they just handle the paperwork. Can you just explain that a little bit?
So I decided that I wanted a buyer's agent to take on our buyers. And what that means is when a buyer lead comes in and somebody wants to buy a house, that would be a member of my team that would help that buyer buy a house. So she would take them from the beginning, counsel them, get them the house they want, negotiate that, and get them all the way to closing. So she would basically be their agent when somebody wanted to buy. I would be the sole agent when somebody wanted to list. And if somebody wanted to list a house, I would get that house listed and sold, and they would go to my buyer's agent and buy. So they would get two realtors.
Okay.
But we're specialized. So I specialize in the listing. I always know what's going on with the listing. She specializes in the buyers. She always knows what's going on with that. So ideally, the buyer's agent would be able to work evenings and weekends and have that flexibility and go into the business knowing that that's the expectation.
So as a person that's doing both, and this is from someone who has no experience, the listing agent is actually, once they become a lister, there really is two transactions that come from it no matter what, because if they're listing it, they're buying somewhere else. Chances are, maybe they go rent somewhere or whatever, but chances are they're looking to buy somewhere else. So you are not only listing, but you're also seeking them a new place. So you're doing double the work, even if it's just one client, correct?
Yes, but I hand it off to my buyer's agent when it's time to buy.
Now you do, but back then you weren't.
Right. So there were days when I would hesitate to list a house because I knew it would sell, and then I'd have to have them in the car the next day looking for houses. And it was like, it's a marathon to get a listing on the market and then to negotiate it. And then you have to immediately get in the car and start looking. So it's too much for one single person to do in a difficult market or in a busy market. And it just makes more sense to break it up and let each side specialize.
Got it. Perfect. Okay.
So when I did that, that made my life more predictable. It made it more tolerable. It allowed me to focus my business, during the Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 4:30 time range, and really kind of guide clients into those timelines, on the listing side of the business. And, that enabled me to have balance because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to continue working at that pace when I decided to have kids. And I waited a while to do it just because I wanted a couple of other things in place and I wasn't ready to start that process yet. But I knew that I needed to feel confident and comfortable in the work-life balance when that happened.
And the biggest piece was admitting that you needed help in hiring the right people to take care of that, right?
Yeah, and really for me, it was releasing control.
Which is a really difficult part for a lot of entrepreneurs, am I right?
It is. And the leveraging of other people is key in the thing that most entrepreneurs think is that they're the best person to do everything. And what they have to do is change their mindset to say, I'm going to find somebody that's better at this than me. Because there are people that are better at this than me. I'm going to find them and make them part of my team so that the people that work with me can have me doing my best thing. And the people that I'm, partnering with, they're doing their best thing. And everybody's having an amazing experience. And if you can't find somebody that you feel confident is doing the best thing, then don't hire them. Scale back,
What happened after you implemented a little balance in your life? Maybe talk about relationship with your husband, maybe with your kids. Maybe it was better success with finances. Maybe it was you were able to have more freedom to work on your own body, maybe your mind, your spirit, whatever it was, what were the